Bonjour tout le monde. Il me fait grand plaisir que vous êtes toutes venus ici aujourd'hui. We have an announcement that I personally consider very exciting, and I would like to say that it is indeed satisfying to be at this point where we can announce what we're announcing today. We have two very distinguished guests with us today. One is Gary Goodyear, the Minister for Science, State and Technology, who is here on behalf of Tony Clement, the Minister of Industry responsible for the Canadian Space Agency. Et aussi, nous accueillons également le honorable José Werner, qui est le ministre des Affaires intergouvernementales, le président de privé Conseil de la Reine, et aussi le ministre de la francophonie. I have spent a great deal of time talking to Gary and José Werner I met today, and I know that they both support the plans of the Canadian Space Agency and what the Canadian Space Agency is doing. And it's with that spirit that I invite Gary Goodyear, the Minister of Science, State and Technology, to talk to you.
Bonjour, Madame et Messieurs. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to be here this morning to reaffirm our government's commitment to science and technology and our Canadian space program. Ever since we became the world's third spacefaring nation with the launch of the Alouette nearly half a century ago, we have used space exploration to drive innovation and technological excellence in our country. For example, just last week, Prime Minister Stephen Harper reiterated our government's commitment to the next generation RadarSat satellite system during his trip to the Arctic. By supporting this space-based technology, our country has been able to improve both our national security and our resource managements. Ladies and gentlemen, that indeed is something worthwhile. Now, if you're talking about true space exploration, I can tell you that we are committed to that as well. As part of Canada's Economic Action Plan, our government recently allocated $110 million over 3 years for the design of advanced rovers, landers, and other space technologies. These technologies will position our nation as a credible partner in future international space exploration missions. Our contributions to Advanced Robotics Suite, including a traveling mobile base, Canadarm2, and Dexter, a two-armed dexterous robot, have been absolutely critical to the assembly and maintenance of the International Space Station. It is Canada's 3D laser imaging system and the extended boom that have assured the safe return of the space shuttle to complete the assembly of the space station. And it is the members, ladies and gentlemen, of Canada's Astronaut Corps who have been at the leading edge of discovery for more than 25 years. When our astronauts blast off to the International Space Station, the goal is just not the destination, it is about the journey. And for Canada, this journey has been a bright and ongoing success. Our astronauts are the public face of our space achievements as a nation. They are indeed our modern-day heroes who have devoted their lives to the quest for discovery. Today, I have the great pleasure of announcing that for the first time ever, a Canadian astronaut will become the commander of the International Space Station. Colonel Chris Hadfield will return to space for a third time and undertake the second long-duration mission for a Canadian astronaut. Hadfield will launch aboard a Russian Soyuz rocket in December of 2012 and take command of the station during the second half of a 6-month mission. This is news for which all Canadians can be proud. Dr. Hadfield, would you join me on the stage, please? Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Chris Hadfield. Chris Hadfield has had a distinguished and exciting career that started as a CF-18 pilot. In his first space voyage, he became the only Canadian astronaut to visit Russia's Mir space station. And in his second voyage to space, Chris became the first to perform a spacewalk when he and a NASA colleague installed Canadarm on the station. Chris has led NASA's space operations at Star City in Moscow and as Chief of Robotics in Houston before distinguishing himself as commander of the underwater mission Nemo, far beneath the waves near Key Largo, Florida. Leaving an underwater mission was a prelude to his next adventure, where he will become the first Canadian to command the International Space Station during his long-term mission. As commander, he will be responsible for the safety of the crew and, of course, of the station itself. He will also be responsible for the success of onboard operations and mission objectives, including the science experiments that will be undertaken. If I can add, ladies and gentlemen, that Chris's family grew up in my riding of North Dumfries, and his brother was born in my riding in Galt. Now, throughout his career, Chris has shared his experience and enthusiasm, as all of you would know, for space with thousands of young Canadians in communities all across our nation. In December of 2012, he will inspire our nation once again and encourage Canadians by his example to excel. I know he will bring the thrill of space exploration into our homes and our hearts. And as a space fan myself, I look forward to following his mission with the greatest of interests. Again, congratulations, Colonel Hadfield.
OK. Maintenant, j'invite le commandant, Chris Hadfield, de parler à vous. I ask Chris to say a few words. OK. Excusez-moi. OK. Je vous invite José Venner, le ministre des Affaires intergouvernementales.
Bon matin à tous, distingués invités. Je remercie tout d'abord mon collègue Gary Goodyear d'être venu ici aujourd'hui pour partager avec nous cette excellente nouvelle pour le programme spatial canadien. Le Canada est reconnu mondialement pour son leadership, son excellence et ses innovations dans le domaine des sciences et des technologies spatiales. Comme l'a indiqué le ministre Goodyear, les initiatives de notre pays sur le plan du vol humain et de la robotique ont donné des résultats bien tangibles. Pensons au bras canadien spatial Canadarm2, un emblème canadien reconnu mondialement ainsi qu'un symbole d'innovation qui a ouvert de nouveaux marchés pour notre industrie spatiale et des milliers d'employés canadiens. Les travaux de recherche menés dans l'espace ont également donné lieu à d'importants progrès d'avant-garde ici, sur Terre, comme la robotique appliquée à la téléchirurgie dans le cadre de recherche scientifique, qui contribue au mieux-être des personnes aux prises avec la perte de masse osseuse et des maladies cardiovasculaires. Aujourd'hui, le Canada est un membre à part entière de la Station spatiale internationale et travaille de concert avec ses pairs à l'élaboration de programmes internationaux d'exploration spatiale. Notre gouvernement est déterminé à ce que le Canada demeure un chef de file en robotique spatiale. Pour ce faire, nous avons investi plus de 110 millions de dollars dans le développement de la robotique liée à la prochaine génération d'atterrisseurs, de rovers et dans les technologies de pointe. Ces investissements stimulent l'innovation aujourd'hui et assureront que le Canada préserve son rôle de premier plan dans les missions d'exploration spatiale de demain. Nous nous sommes engagés à faire en sorte que les professionnels œuvrant dans le domaine clé de la recherche et du développement désirent rester au Canada. Ce sont ces experts qui mettent au point des satellites, comme ceux de la constellation Radarsat, qui vont nous aider à mieux observer le Canada, en particulier l'Arctique, et ses approches côtières, et qui recueillent des informations essentielles à l'étude de notre planète. À l'avant-plan des réussites canadiennes dans l'exploration spatiale, il y a nos astronautes qui consacrent leur vie à la découverte de nouveaux horizons. À cette liste impressionnante de réalisations vient s'ajouter une autre distinction importante, M. Chris Hadfield, qui sera le premier Canadien à assumer le rôle de commandant de la station spatiale. Félicitations, M. Hadfield. Il mène une remarquable et brillante carrière qui remonte au jour où il s'entraînait comme pilote d'avion chasseur CF-18. Il fut le premier astronaute canadien à avoir pris place à bord de la station russe Mir. Il est également le premier à être sorti dans l'espace pour procéder à l'installation du bras canadien Canadarm2. Alors, tout comme mon collègue, le ministre Goodyear, et l'ensemble de la population canadienne, je vous y invite, je suivrai avec beaucoup d'intérêt cette mission spatiale en 2012. Je vous remercie.
Merci, ministre José. Et maintenant, sans plus de délai, Chris Hadfield.
Bonjour. C'est absolument un honneur. Premièrement, je dois dire, c'est avec beaucoup de fierté d'être ici aujourd'hui avec vous, mes amis, les membres de l'Agence spatiale canadienne. C'est un niveau pour nous, c'est une chose incroyable après beaucoup des années de préparation, d'entraînement, les succès dans l'histoire. If you look back in the history of our country, we have steadily increased our capabilities in understanding our land and understanding the atmosphere above it and in understanding what lies beyond. And with the very first powered flight 100 years ago, avec le premier satellite canadien, comme le ministre Goodyear a dit, il y a presque 50 ans, Alouette, nous étions le troisième pays d'avoir un satellite dans l'espace après les États-Unis et Russie. With the Canadian arm, the Canadarm1 that was put on the shuttle, that had such tremendous successes, and we learned so much of capturing the Hubble telescope to allow us to understand the age of the universe. Couldn't be done without Canadian invention, Canadian blood, sweat, and tears, and Canadian success. And the Canadarm2 that has built the International Space Station. It was built right across our country in shops and in software laboratories by bright, capable Canadians that put that thing together, which then we were trusted as a nation and an agency to launch on board the shuttle, and then trusted to build the world's great laboratory in space. 16 nations working together to understand what lies beyond our atmosphere. L'Agence spatiale fait beaucoup de projets maintenant pour mieux savoir la santé de l'atmosphère, la santé de notre pays, pour mieux savoir le Nord. All sorts of satellite and Earth-based and balloon-based technologies that we're working on to try and really see where we are ecologically and technologically and historically as a country in the world. To be a member selected for this honor is just beyond words for myself. I've been a public servant. I've been working in the military and as an astronaut for my entire adult life. And to have this opportunity is extremely challenging, extremely exciting for me, and extremely rewarding as well. It's still over 2 years away. I still have to pass 2 more of the toughest physicals of anybody on Earth before they'll let me get into that Soyuz and go dock with that space station. There's a lot of training. I'll be helping to fly the Soyuz as it's Bortengineer Adin, like the co-pilot of the Soyuz. So there's a lot of training in Russia and in Japan and in Europe, across the United States and in Canada between now and launch. But with my crew, we will be 6 people on board, and to be trusted with their lives and with that entire station on behalf of all the world's spacefaring nations, but most specifically on behalf of Canada, is a tremendous honor that all of us can share. Thank you.
Okay, what I would like to do now is open the discussion to about 5 minutes of questions with the media.
J'ai juste... Ça marche, non? Pas encore. J'ai juste reçu la nouvelle que... Excusez-moi. Que les autres membres de l'équipage étaient annoncés par NASA. C'est avec un Américain qui s'appelle un médecin, Tom Marshburn. Il était avec moi sous l'océan pour Nemo il y a quelques mois. Tom Marshburn, c'est membre dans la Soyuz avec moi. Et le commandant du Soyuz, c'est Roman Romanenko, russe, qui a voyagé dans l'espace déjà avec Bob Thirsk, le dernier Canadien dans la station. Et donc, ça c'est l'équipage qui sont une autre famille pour moi pendant les années prochaines. Yes, those questions.
A couple of quick questions. First of all, can you just give us a little more detail about what you intend to learn during the mission? And a follow-up question would be that you said that you have to undergo 2 of the most intense physicals. I was wondering how you train for those types of physicals. What type of training does it involve?
For the mission itself, in the 6 months that we'll be on board the space station, it is the world's only laboratory that has no gravity or has very, very small effects of gravity. And so there's an American-built laboratory, a European-built laboratory, a Japanese-built laboratory, and before I get there and with the crew, there'll be a Russian-built laboratory, all powered by these enormous solar arrays put together by Canadarm2, taking advantage of that absolutely unique research environment. So a large part of what we will be doing is operating all of those experiments on behalf of all of the researchers across Canada and around the world that have their experiments on board. It's a tremendous place to look at the universe. By the time we get there, the alpha magnetic spectrometer will be on board, looking at the origins of the universe, gathering high-energy particles coming from the rest of the suns that exist out there. And it's a tremendous platform, of course, to watch the changes as they happen to the surface of our own world, like the volcano in Iceland, or the changes that occur with what we do to our atmosphere, or the hurricanes that are storming across the Atlantic right now. So that's the primary purpose. But of course, it's a big place. It's a huge apartment building in orbit, and it takes a lot of maintenance. And so one of the other things we'll do is keep fixing things, keep maintaining it, keep it operating healthy. It goes 8 kilometers a second. It goes from minus 150 degrees to plus 150 degrees 16 times a day as it goes around the world. It's an extremely hostile environment to be a machine. And so it takes a lot of work. Most of the work we'll do inside, but as we saw earlier in August, sometimes something breaks outside, and it may well be that Tom and I would have to go out on spacewalks, ride the end of Canadarm2, and go fix something that may break in the 6 months that we're out there, or that needs fixing while we're there. And then the last part is for me personally, as the commander of the space station, of course, the health and care of my crew, already starting months ago, but now officially announced today, making sure that everyone is fully trained, is psychologically and physically ready for it, has passed all those medicals, so that when we launch, we are as ready to do this thing on behalf of everybody in this room, on behalf of everybody around the world, as we possibly can be. That's our charge. And so the training is very technical. Of course, it's a very complex vehicle, and we fly this one in Russian, the Soyuz. So all of the training's in Russian. You fly the vehicle in Russian, talking to Russian Mission Control just north of Moscow. So I spend a lot of my time in Star City, Russia. And it's a new version of it also. It's the Soyuz 700 version with a lot of different, important to us, changes inside. So there's all sorts of training all around the world in those places. Technical, trying to understand those things. Of course, Russian, need to speak Russian well enough to be able to function in that language.
Get ready to understand all the experiments that are on board and be able to do them on behalf of the researchers on the ground, and train to fix everything that might break in 6 months on a vehicle that big, this big aircraft carrier of a space station. So it's a lot of training, a lot of things to know and remember, and that's what myself and the crew will be doing, as Bob Thirsk did when he was on the space station a year and a half ago, and as the people that are living up there right now have done.
Just the physical training aspect?
It's important to stay in shape. They really want to understand what happens to your body when you remove gravity. It's a great laboratory to study how osteoporosis progresses, how your balance system works, how your blood pressure regulation system works. There are many, many Canadians that have problems through age or through disease in those three areas. And we can take away one variable. When you take away gravity, how does your body control your muscle and bone development or erosion? And through exercise or diet, which we control very heavily on board the space station, how can you maintain those things so that we don't get osteoporosis or we don't have muscle wasting? It's a laboratory not just for materials research, but also for human physiology research. And so they really want to understand our bodies. So we exercise, we run, we have a very controlled regimen. We have a steadily increasingly strict list of things we're not allowed to do anymore leading up to launch, because they don't want us to get injured, of course. And I will be the backup with my crew. We will be the backup to the launch in June of 2012. So if they did get injured, we would be ready to launch in June of 2012. We'll be standing in Baikonur for the Soyuz's launch when Sunny Williams and her crew launches in June of 2012, just in case we needed to have a backup pushed in. So we will be maintaining our health. We have lots of doctors and people at the Canadian Space Agency helping to take care of my body and mind so that we launch ready to do the things we're asked to do.
Lauren McCallum, CBC Radio. I want to ask you two questions. First, what are you looking forward to the most personally? And I want you to talk a little bit more about these this call out for proposals for science experiments and maybe your guitar playing that you'll be doing.
Okay. Since I was an air cadet at 13 years old, and I went to junior leaders course in Trenton, Ontario, and was told the basic precepts of leadership. And then my time at the Royal Military College, the 25 years that I served in the Air Force, and the 18 years that I've served with the Canadian Space Agency, I've had steadily increasing opportunities to lead and to take care of people. And the part that I am absolutely looking forward to the most is to bring a healthy, excited, competent, and appreciative crew up to the space station who do all the things that we're asked to do with good spirit and with understanding the significance of what we're doing and bringing them home safely again. For me, that will be the most satisfying thing, to be, after all these years of steadily increasing Canadian responsibility and technical capability, for us to be trusted to do that is extremely important that we do it right as an agency, extremely important that I do it right as the commander, and it's the part of it that I'm looking forward to the most. I've been to Mir, and I've been to the International Space Station. I understand the technical stuff, but it's the humanity of it that really interests me, and bringing that team of extremely competent people from all around the world together to do something that's nearly miraculous. That's the part I look forward to the most. You asked two other questions. One's about music, the other is about some of the proposals that are out there, and I can pass that question to...
One last question.
Okay, one last question. There are people at the agency that have the exact details of how that competition is going on, and you're probably better to get it from them directly. And then that's the mission patch right up there. I've played guitar since I was a child, and there's a guitar on the International Space Station right now, a Larrivée, that's made in Vancouver. And it's been up there for several years. There was a guitar on Mir, and I brought a guitar up to Space Station Mir that will be traveling with the Canadian Space Agency traveling exhibit. And there are various symbols in the patch that are important historically, where we are in history from the Earth to the Moon to Mars and beyond. My third mission, my three children, my military astronaut wings that were given to me by the Prime Minister after my first flight. Those, and of course, the key element of the space station and where we live and work as we move further out into the universe in both physical presence and in understanding. But it's if you're a guitar player, you can also see it's the shape of a guitar pick. And I'm really looking forward to including Canadians. I've played music with a lot of different people over the years. I play in a couple bands regularly. Randy Bachman and I played on Pamela Wallen Live once together, oddly enough. And I'm no great musician, but I really enjoy music, and I enjoy the communication that it opens up. I'm really looking forward to floating in the cupola right under there, which is the big bay window, floating weightless in the cupola, looking down on the world, playing a Canadian-made guitar of all of the Stan Rogers songs of exploration across our country and around the world, but also being able to tie that in to musicians across Canada. I'm looking for ways to do that, and of course we have a little over 2 years to figure out the best way to not only do the technical part of what's involved in doing this and all the science on board, but the most interesting part is the humanity of it and what it means to us as a species and where it's taking us and how to truly appreciate it. And Roman Romanenko is a guitar player. He played with U2 in Moscow last week, actually. And Tom Marshburn is a classical guitarist. And so between the three of us, I think there'll be lots of use of picks on board and lots of guitar playing. And that'll be a nice, enriching facet of what we'll be doing up there.
Peter Ray from the Canadian Press. Nice to talk to you again.
Nice to talk to you again today, Peter.
One of the responsibilities, I guess, as a commander is you've got to control these people. I mean, it gets very stressful up there. You're going to be up there for 6 months. Have you taken any special courses on how to deal with astronauts who maybe get a little out of control once in a while? And can you have that? And could I have a response in French?
Sure, I'll start in English. As I'd mentioned before, Peter, by luck, really more than anything, I have had a life of watching all different types of leaders in military roles and in the space business do their work. And I've seen some tremendous leadership. I've tried to learn from each of them how to take care of a crew in good times and in bad times. And as a member of the Canadian Space Agency and working with NASA and with the Russian Space Agency over years, I've been given steadily increasing levels of responsibility. I was NASA's director at Star City for 18 months, taking care of all of the crews that were training there and negotiating with the Russians to make sure that everyone's needs were being looked out for. I was the chief Capcom for 4 years working in mission control. I was director of robotics. I was chief of space station operations for the NASA Astronaut Office for a few years. So I know every astronaut that flies in space. There's not very many of us on Earth. And so they're all friends, they're all colleagues. And one thing I learned a long time ago is if you leave things till late when it comes to dealing with people, then something may crop up that surprises you that you're not ready for. The beauty of this is I know everybody that I'm flying with. We've been friends for years. I know their strengths, I know my own weaknesses and theirs, and we have a lot of time between now and then to prepare. And as the commander, just like I did when I commanded Nemo back in the spring, you want to keep a lot of things in reserve. You can't have all your fun in the first day. You can't have all your fun in the first month. We're there for the long haul. We are operating this station, running these experiments through thick and thin, through good and bad, for 6 months. And so I need to have Easter eggs, where every so often you can pop out something new and fun, where you can bring in something, where we can have, if a crew member's not feeling well, to find out what's on their mind and maybe give them a chance to talk with someone on Earth that would really brighten their day, to really take care of the people that I'm there with. Technical stuff is very complex, but it's learnable. But dealing with people, of course, is much more complex. And I'm trying to draw on the things that I've learned over the last 51 years, and I'll definitely be working over the next 2 years to make sure that all of us that are up there are ready to deal with the eventualities that might occur. Vraiment, peut-être en français, c'est d'être commandant de la station et de l'équipage, c'est un défi tellement important pour moi, et c'est nécessaire. Depuis toute ma vie, peut-être je suis en cours d'entraînement pour préparer pour cet défi. Comme cadet de l'air, comme officier dans les forces aériennes et comme astronaute, j'étais le chef à la Cité des Étoiles en Russie pendant 18 mois, quelques travaux dans le bureau des astronautes de NASA. et aussi le chef astronaute ici avec l'Agence spatiale canadienne pendant quelques années. Et donc, c'était un cours de regarder les autres leaders pour savoir exactement les techniques les plus efficaces, mais aussi pour pratiquer les techniques moi-même. Et il reste plus que 2 ans maintenant avant le lancement pour préparer l'équipage. Ce sont tous mes amis, mais pour préparer l'équipage, pour préparer tout l'équipage ici sur Terre, d'être absolument prête pour les événements pendant 6 mois dans la Station spatiale internationale.
Merci, Chris. On va...
OK, merci beaucoup. Ça va être très excitant pour Chris Hadfield. It will be very exciting for the Canadian Space Agency. It will be very exciting for you. I invite you all not just to watch the mission that starts in December of 2012, but starting today, follow Chris Hadfield, follow us through the training and through the excitement of the next 2 years preparing for what I consider a breakthrough mission. Merci beaucoup.